Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. What would you think are the two most common words that Christians use when they're in a panic or in a crisis? Do something. Do something, Lord. It's absolutely against human nature to stand still and do nothing when there's a crisis and there's trouble and difficulty on all hands. And probably the most difficult thing for even Christians is to stand still and wait for God to act. To stand still to see the salvation of the Lord. Even the most devoted of Christians panic when God doesn't move according to their time schedule. We're always giving God dates. We're always giving him a time limit. Lord, if you don't do it by now or by tomorrow or by next week, it's too late. God is never too late, and he's going to do it not on your schedule, not on mine. He's going to do it on his own schedule. But God is always and has always been searching the earth for those who will trust him in their crisis, in every trial, and especially when it seems hopeless. And he will lead us, listen closely, he will lead us into situations that are alarming, that are critical, that seem hopeless, to test us. Devil has nothing to do with it at all. It's God leading into the crisis. The Bible states fairly clearly, the steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, Psalms 37:23. And that in Hebrew is prearranged, step by step, fixed, ordained by God. I'm going to tell you something. I believe that every step that I take is prearranged by my Father. Every step that I take is ordered by the Lord. Now, if I believe that, if I'm in a crisis, if I'm in a very, very difficult situation, he's led me there. Because he doesn't stop for a moment while he says, well, you're about to go into a trial. I direct you up to this point. You're on your own now. He directs me into it, through it, and out of it. The steps of a good man, and we are good only by the blood of Jesus anyhow. There's no goodness in us. A good man made righteous through the blood of Jesus Christ is her steps ordered by the Lord. God's word is filled with examples of this. And by the way, it's hard to accept. Think about it for a minute. It's very, very hard to accept this concept that the most difficult, critical times in your life have been prearranged by the Lord. That they are his doing. And folks, when you begin to see that and accept it and understand it, then you're halfway through your problem.
All right, and welcome to Proverbs Guys Ministries. We have a really exciting show for you today. As you could probably tell from the thumbnail, today we're going to be talking about life after Dinosaur Adventureland, but really that's a little bit misleading because we're going to be going into a lot more detail about life at Dinosaur Adventureland and what that looks like and if you would recommend it to anyone else. So since I'm well known around here, Rich, I think I'll let you start with how you ended up at Dinosaur Adventureland, what brought you there, and what your first initial experience with Dow was.
Well, first, let me say this. This is kind of on my heart, just listening to the intro and peaceful John Williams music you had going on in the background. You know what I really love about the Spirit? At times you're just overwhelmed with peace, knowing that all the stupid junk you've done in your past is remembered no more. You just at peace, knowing regardless of what you go through, God is right there with you the whole time. I wish I would have realized that years ago. The amount of stress I went through in life wouldn't even matter. Just being in the presence and the peace of God is just very rewarding.
Yeah, amen to that.
So let's see here. How did I hear about Dinoland? I might as well just start at the beginning. So I won't go into these details, but after one of the most difficult years of my life, and I moved away from Colorado back to Nashville, Tennessee. Was just starting to get settled in there, had a job lined up, had a place lined up, and I had 2 days until I moved into my apartment, about three or four until my job started. I'm sitting there at a hotel downtown near the football stadium, just an old rundown hotel, and was just kind of praying, just relaxing and wondering what I was going to do for the next couple days. And something came over me in my mind. It's just go on Craigslist and look for some work, just get something done, instead of just wasting the time. And I found a job for 2 days helping a guy build a cedar fence around a piece of property. Well, I headed out there, and the second day, I was working again with this Mexican boy. I wish I could remember his name. But I was sharing my faith and sharing some of the theories that, um, God opened my eyes to. And they said, "Have you heard of the Hoven theory?" I'm like, "The who?" Didn't know what he was talking about. And he talked about a few of the things in there, and I was very intrigued. So I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget it, put it in my wallet to look up later, and basically ignored it for 3 or 4 weeks. So I started a job working at the Nissan plant, moving semi trailers around. And there was a certain amount of downtime, and as a truck driver, you need time to really things to occupy your mind to make the days go by quicker. So finally, one day, I pulled it up on YouTube, started listening to it, and I was just mesmerized. I was like, finally, somebody, who has a brain who can actually, bring up science, from a biblical point of view. And I was almost hooked instantly. And I started listening to his entire seminar series, just loved it so much, almost put it on repeat just so I could memorize a lot of the things he's talking about. So, I could talk to people witnessing my faith, and when those questions come up and you're just dumbfounded, you didn't know, how to really answer. Um, so at the time, I was also looking to go to school for aerospace engineering. And my cousin, who was a career National Guard recruiter, knew just about every college advisor in the city of Nashville and introduced me to, in his opinion, the best college advisor in the city. And I went and talked to him for a couple hours and just picked his brain on what I could do to get that career moving forward, what prerequisites I could take at the community college, what universities I could transfer to. Um, I was just very passionate about it, right? They say you will never work a day in your life if you find something, that you love doing. And aerospace engineering fascinated me for about 10 years and decided to make a career out of it. Um, Around the time I was also transferred to a different job. I didn't really like that job at the Nissan plant and ended up working for a, a company called Siva, who hauled all the equipment and product around for Dell computers. And I was basically transferring stuff from warehouse to warehouse. And they got to a point where they were shorting me on my hours, and my bills were starting to pile up. I started getting late fees and all this stuff. And both of these things were happening around the same time. Um, so around, I think, the first or second week of getting my hours cut short, not cut short, I mean, shorting me the hours that I worked, I finally went in with cash in hand to pay for the first three classes of my school. And classes started, I think, 2 or 3 days from then, and talked to the receptionist, and they said, "Oh, we can't let you take the classes. You have this and this to take care of." And I was like, "Well, this recruiter told me I didn't need them, or this advisor." And I even talked to her manager just to confirm what was going on. Well, they said, yeah, we do understand the guy. We do know him, but, he's wrong. I guess they recently changed something. I don't remember. It was quite a while ago. But panicking, I was driving all over the city to try to get these last things taken care of. And the day before classes started, I'll never forget it. I was sitting there in the library at the computer, and I was just at the mercy of God. I was like, Lord, just sitting there in prayer. Like, I thought this was your plan for my life. If it's not, I need a sign. I need something because I don't know what to do.
You know what they say about making plans? It's if you want to make God laugh, tell him the plans you have for your life.
Right, right. Um, but I mean, his timing. This is also testimony where I think this shows that God's timing is divine. 2 months before that, I decided to reach out to Dr. Hovind with some thoughts that I had on some things he was talking about, and I sent him that email. And as soon as I was done praying there at the computer, literally I said amen. About 3 to 5 seconds later, there's a chime on my phone. It says, "You have a new voicemail." The ringer was on, but the phone didn't ring. So I stepped outside to, I was smoking at the time, to have a cigarette, and leaned up against a brick wall, um, checked the voicemail, and it was Dr. Hovind replying to um, that email I sent. And God got my attention. So I was dealing with the stuff back over with Siva, and a couple weeks later, standing up for myself, doing a one-man protest, I got fired. Basically, I was asking them to, you know, make things right. Give me, pay me for the hours that I worked, and I basically told them, I was like, my bills are behind. I'm late on my rent again. They just didn't really seem to care. So I did a one-man protest. I said, I'm going to go sit in that truck, and I'm not going to move anywhere until you guys cut me a check. And finally, around lunch, I got a phone call. I was like, okay, Richard, we got your check. We have all the hours for. Come in, and we'll give it to you. I stepped into the office. They gave it to me. I checked it with my records. I was like, it was there to the penny. I'm like, perfect. Thank you very much. I got a good work ethic. Let's go. Where do you want me to go? What do you want me to haul? Like, oh, by the way, you're fired. Well, thanks, guys. So basically got fired from Steve Siva for standing up for myself. And I was so frustrated, and all I could think of is, I'm going to blow off some steam. I'm going to go down there to Dinosaur Adventureland. Dr. Hovind was asking for volunteers, and I'm going to go see what this place is all about. And I planned a 4-day trip and ended up staying there for 4 months. God literally had to get my grandmother off of this planet, to get me to leave that property. I went to her funeral and immediately went back home, subletted out my apartment, and went down there to work for Dr. Hovind full time. Um, yeah, God lined everything up. He basically said, "Is like, I don't need you in aerospace engineering. I need you to go down here and mentor and study, you know, from this guy, and you know, make that your focus." And that's what I did, and stayed at his place. I was on and off for a total of about 3.5 to 4 years over a 6 or 7 year span. Became really
Let,
good friends with Dr. Hovind, and
let me ask you, what was your first conversation? Did you talk to Kent before you arrived?
um, briefly, they said that like he does on his show all the time that come on down, bring a hammer. We're looking for volunteers. Come down and stay for a little bit. Um,
What
I
was your
remember.
conversation with him?
Well, every conversation I've had with Dr. Hovind has been very short. Like, I've known him for 7 years. Like, the longest conversation I've ever had with him was like 5 minutes. You get two people with a really bad attention span and tell them to sit down and actually talk about something can be difficult. I do remember my first conversation was with a guy named Daniel, who um, ended up leaving. He was that preacher or pastor from or evangelist from Australia. I remember he, you know, was really good on the guitar and wrote a little Dinosaur Adventureland song. And always did worship for them way back in the day. Um, I talked to Anna and Lady Di, but I don't recall actually talking to Dr. Hoven on the phone. I talked to them. They just said, "Yeah, come on down," and
Was Julie the secretary at that time?
no. So Julie and Nick moved there after I left the first time, like 9 months later. This is even before they got there.
Okay, so
This
let me
was
tell you. And by the way, welcome, Casper.
Hi, thank you.
Have you been here before?
Nope,
Have you ever been by Dinosaur Adventureland?
nope.
Oh, okay. What do you have to contribute to us?
Oh, I just wanted to listen and share some thoughts if you're interested, but that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
What are your
Well,
thoughts on?
Oh, not yet. Maybe you can ask a question, or I can go.
Okay. All right. So Rich, let me tell you my first conversation that I had with Ken. So I grew up watching his material as a kid. It was even
mhm.
part of some of my homeschooling work. So I've known who he was my whole life. And I was a big fan. And when I found out he was out and back, doing his shows, and I found him on YouTube, I was thrilled. And I had introduced him to my friend Kenny. And we both binge watched his shows. And you know how you impersonate people, but it's like admiration. Well, we would see which one of us could do a better Kent Hovind accent. The hey, Kent Hovind and the crew here at Dinosaur Adventureland, and
Right.
we would just see who could do it better.
So
Well,
can I ask you a question, please?
yes,
So you guys think creation offers a better explanation for life on Earth? Is that it?
we
Instead of
do.
evolution?
Yeah, and we have a lot of panels where we discuss that, and you're welcome to come on any of them. But we're trying to keep this one focused on life at Dinosaur Adventureland.
Ah, okay. Then I'll be off. Thank you. Have a good night.
Hey, you too. God bless,
Yeah.
and definitely come back because we do a lot of these panels.
Real quick, let me throw this in there, Casper. My opinion as a creationist,
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
believe God is the only explanation for why life is here, because physics will not allow life to create itself.
Ah, that's clear. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to have a conversation with you about that some other time.
That's good. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Bye bye.
Have a good day.
All right. Hopefully he comes back at one of these panels. So yeah, as I was saying, like me and Kenny, we would practice and see who could do a better Kent Hovind impersonation. And Kenny ended up going to Dow about a month ahead of myself. And he kind of helped pave the way for us to go there too. And eventually we did. But I got a call one day just before I was headed that way. And I answer the phone and I hear, hello, hello, this is Kent Hovind. And I thought that it was Kenny doing a Kent Hovind impersonation. So my reply to that was, "R and this be Long John Silver." And then, and then Doc says something along the lines of, "Excuse me," and I panicked and I hung up on him. That was my first call, and then he calls back, and I'm like, "Oh, hello, yes, Dr. Hovind." He's like, "Man, brother, I think I just called the wrong number. I got a hold of a Long John Silver's." Oh man,
Yeah, the guy has one of the best sense of humors out of anybody I've ever met in my life.
he
Nowadays,
does.
you call him, he's like, "Hello, is this the guy who answered the phone?"
Yeah, yeah, I've heard that one quite a few times.
Like,
He
no,
loves that.
it's not actually.
No, this is somebody else. All right, so you show up at Dow. They get you in a cabin or they throw you in the man cave.
Well, so they've changed the number of the cabins, but so it was the old cabin four. Um, that was the man cave when I was there. I mean, maybe enough to house like 8 people crammed in there. Um, So which one's cabin 4? So it's the cabin that is closest to the modern dining hall.
Okay, I think that's cabin 7. It's
I think
that's the hen
maybe.
house now. That's where they put the single ladies.
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
it used to be. Now it's under the Meister's house.
sure.
But okay, yes. So that's the cabin they put you in.
Yeah. I remember during I showed up right around lunchtime, I think, and they said, so the second entrance, what used to be the dining hall, which is now, I guess, where they house the family who's working in the barn, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that used to be the dining hall. Half the rooms weren't there. They basically ate on a dirt floor. They showed up, and Lady Di was in there, and I was in there. I think Anna and one or two other people, two other staff. But I remember seeing, some people, roll up, cash and then put a rubber band around it, and stick it in their pocket or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
There was one of those just randomly lying in the middle of the table, and I remember my boarding school instructor used to do that. You said, some friends used to do that as a test growing up. If you want to trust one of your kids, just randomly put a $20 bill out there on the table. If it disappears, you can't trust the kid's friend, never have them over anymore. But that was a thought that, was going through my head. And I remember asking Lady Di, I was like, can you break a 20? Do you have like, a couple of tens or something? She's like, no, why? I was like, because I want to take some cash and put it around that little thing you got setting out there, just add money to it, and just a look on her face. Like I read her like a book. I knew exactly what was going on. But from that point, I guess they started trusting me with things. And I don't know, just almost immediately, I felt like I belonged there, it's just, I've never been to a place where everybody was a believer in Christ and everybody had your back. And it was just so peaceful. Again, it was so difficult for me to leave. I planned a 4-day trip and was there for 4 months. I felt like I belonged there immediately.
So that's your first impression. Who was like in management positions at that time? Obviously, you always have Doc at the pinnacle, but going down from there, what was the infrastructure? Who was in charge?
Um, so this was right after Dr. Hoven left Mary Toko
Or Mary
before she
Toko left
started.
Doc?
Yeah, that's right. That's what it was. It was like a month or two after that is when I got there. Um, Cindy, I guess at the moment just left and
That's
hadn't
right, because
come.
she left and came back.
Yeah. Um, Lady Di was there. We can get into my theories about who she really was.
Okay,
Um,
I would actually like that. What do you have?
well, so I've run into a couple people who I believe were there sent by other people, whether they're atheists or people just to keep an eye on Doc, because the guy is open about it. He says he has an IQ of 160. Well, for comparison, so did Stephen Hawking and Elon Musk. So neat, and they say if you have an IQ of 105, you are among the top 1% of intelligent people on the planet. And he had an IQ of 160. Very brilliant, and the paranoid schizophrenics that we have in the CIA or whoever that run this country, have to keep an eye on intelligent people like that. But I'm not saying that's what they're. I've seen people there, and those are my theories about why certain individuals were sent there. But Lady Di has this testimony. She says the very first day she was on the job down in Pensacola was the same day that Dr. Hoven got arrested, right? And 9 years later, she was still on staff the whole time, and she was the only staff member to transfer from Pensacola up to Alabama,
That is
right?
so weird.
Check this out. So the day, I don't remember what they called. It wasn't probation, but it was just the government watch thing or whatever, something like probation, but not kind of um, on that level. But the day that Dr. Hoven was officially released from that was the exact same day that Lady Di put in her notice and left. Doesn't take a rocket science to add that stuff together.
Yeah, that's very peculiar timing. So I'm
Yeah.
assuming when you were there, Lady Di was the office lady?
Uh, ye- Kind of. So I guess her and Anna. I don't know if you ever met Anna Newton.
I
Little
have
high.
not, but my wife had met Anna plenty of times.
Yeah. So yeah, she was the girl who answered the phone all the time. Had the really high,
She
squeaky
talked
voice.
exactly like Cindy Lincoln.
Yeah, almost a little more high pitched though. She was a
Mm-hmm.
sweetheart. She
Yeah.
was like a little sister to me. I do miss that young lady. I hope I run into her again sometime. Um, but yeah, there were. I'm trying to remember who else was there. I met like 1,500, 2,000 people by the time
Because,
I was there.
see,
People.
I got there in April of 2020.
Okay,
And
18 was my first time there.
no,
Spring.
you know what? It would have been right before April. So I guess it was about March. I would have got there around March. And when I got there, Julie was the secretary and pretty much ran the whole office. Her husband, Nick, had already stopped volunteering at the ministry and had a different job. Cindy had just married Doc. Like they were still basically newlyweds. And Steve Lynn was pretty much the second in command. Did you meet Steve Lynn?
Yeah, we got along for maybe about 5 minutes, and then just because Steve being the way Steve was, we didn't get along at all.
Give your impression, describe for people your opinion on Steve Lynn. And you and I have never talked about Steve Lynn.
No, no. I don't know. When I was raised, they said if you don't have anything nice to say to anybody, don't say anything at all. So I kind of want to don't say anything at all.
That's
No.
true, but there were a lot of criticisms about Dow and how Dow operated from that time. And I do think it's important to kind of go over his character because a lot of the unsavory things that people are unhappy about at that time, a lot of it, I believe, came from Steve Lynn.
I remember Ernie Land, who was like a trustee for a while, no longer part of the ministry, just wanted to retire.
Hmm.
He recommended Steve because he was one of those rare talents with computers. The guy was very good at what he did. Um, from what I understand, he, fought with Doc and somehow manipulated the guy to get as much control as he could and control the finances and stuff like that. And
Which he did eventually.
yeah, no, yeah, and he ordered the top of the line, most expensive stuff, which wasn't really necessary. I don't know if he found a way to launder the money or that's what he was doing. I know at one point he got caught by stealing like money to buy a $50,000 Jeep or something like that. I don't know all the stuff, but I do remember one time actually he had like a top of the line $3,000 to $5,000 drone he was flying around, and for some reason I thought it was a good idea to try to shoot it out of the sky with a potato gun. That was fun, but I kind of got chewed out pretty good for that. But that's at least a good story. Um, I came really close once. I think I came within like 4 or 5 feet of hitting the thing, but yeah, he wasn't. Steve wasn't too happy about that, and then Doctor Hoven and I had a good conversation. That was probably the biggest warning I ever got. Um, but it was too long ago to know exactly why Steve and I didn't like each other. I guess he was just the type of person if he saw anything wrong, or he saw that you're getting on Dr. Hoven's good side, he'd do something just to kind of throw you under the bus and make Dr. Hoven not like you. He was, I guess, he sucked up to Doc and was his best friend and used that position to make it his place, you know. And anything that he said basically went because Dr. Hovind believed anything he said, you know. So,
Yeah, you know, he was in the tech department, and when I arrived, I don't even know how much of the stuff he was doing Doc was even aware of, because for some reason, Steve had a lot of control and no oversight. But Doc found out that I had a background in tech and wanted to see if I could be of use to Steve, helping him in the tech department. And I told him initially, yeah, that would be awesome. Like, that's a dream, right? Because most people show up and you automatically go into laboring. So going right into the tech department, that's a dream. Like, all of us can't have Joseph Shackelford's amazing job.
yeah.
And so I was psyched. And one of the first conversations we had on the phone, and this is public somewhere, I released these texting conversations in YouTube videos back when I was anti Kent Hovind and we were trying to hurt his reputation and trying to draw connections between him and Steve and kind of blaming Doc for stuff that Steve had done. Well, Steve asked me if I would be willing to help him plant bugs in the different cabins to find out
Hmm.
what people were up to. And
See,
that
there was this one time that Steve actually bought a device to look for those bugs because people were getting some information that, you know, they wouldn't have unless they were there in the ministry.
I believe it was Freddy. I believe one of the biggest rats that ever went through Dow was Freddy.
Really? He and I
I
were good friends. I never suspected that.
I never trusted him. And what really sealed it for me is when Cindy Lincoln was paying me to help her take Kent down. You know, I worked for her
She
for
was
about a
paying
year.
you to help take Kent down.
Oh yeah, dude, like very handsomely. And we were. She had collected like 80 plus hours of audio of him when he was not aware he was being recorded, and then she gave it to me, and we would go through and clip up the stuff we thought was the most damaging, and we would upload it to an unknown YouTube channel and then start reposting it since it was public domain. And one day, while I was at Cindy's house and we were doing this kind of stuff and working on her case against Kent, she got a phone call from Freddie. And Freddie said, I have something that I want to show you. Can I come by? And she said, yeah, you know that. And then he drove by and saw me outside, and he and I never liked each other. And he saw me outside, and then he quickly sped off. And ever since then, I knew, okay, he was working with Cindy Lincoln. Always had been.
That's terrible, man. Like, 'cause I loved him and I loved his family. We were all really good friends. I never suspected that, but just to hear that, that just kind of breaks my heart, man.
Yeah. I think all in all, Cindy Lincoln and I had contacted maybe 40 different former employees, and we looked for the ones that we knew were disgruntled when they left. And not all of them great character witnesses either, just some sometimes real seedy people. And out of the 40 people we contacted of the disgruntled former workers, only about 10 of them would do interviews with us. And I would talk with them before they did the interview, and we'd kind of go over, we want you to kind of push this hard and kind of just vaguely go over this. Like, we'd really manipulate what came out of them to try to make him look the worst possible way we could.
Yeah. You and about half the other atheists out there.
Yeah. All right. So you arrive at Dow. You're in the cabin. What's your first assignment? Where does Doc have you stationed? What's it like to be a volunteer there when you're new?
It'll take me a minute or two to remember my first thing that I did there, but I remember pretty quick within a month I was put in charge to manage the lake and everything down there. Um, One of the things that I set up was a tour of the lakes where we had a pontoon boat at the time, but no motors were allowed out there just because the shores and the peninsula and the island, it was all just sand, and we didn't want any wake to speed up the erosion process. So basically, I took a little trolling motor, mounted it on there, Ended up getting a diesel battery from one of the neighbors, and ended up purchasing a little charge controller and a solar panel, and set it up right there at the dock so we could constantly have juice set up for that. And basically, when we had a crew, um, or a bunch of kids show up, I just do a little tour around the lake. I think, geez, I had maybe about almost 20 high school kids on that thing at one point. I'm surprised the thing stayed afloat. But, yeah, basically staying in charge of the lake, and doing everything around there when I didn't have any other assignments. But the assignments changed so much that it seemed like I was only able to work on the lake about half the time. I remember one August, we'd schedule all the lake stuff, in the afternoon. So right after lunch, when it was 9,000 degrees outside, we were actually standing in the water working on stuff like that. Man, what was my very first job that I did when I was there? I don't know. It might come to me later during this interview, but I can't think of what it was off the top of my head.
All right, so with any big family, siblings tend to gravitate to certain siblings. You end up with little cliques.
Yeah.
And Dinosaur Adventureland is a big family. And
Oh yeah.
obviously there's cliques, and whenever you have cliques, that causes infighting. What were some of the cliques when you were there, and were there certain people that you just absolutely didn't trust from the get-go, and why?
Well, Steve Lynn was one of them. Just because of the attitude. Um, I have. I try to trust everybody, and try to be friends with everybody until they really give me a reason not to. And then I still try to be forgiving. I don't really like to hate on a lot of people, but there wasn't really a whole lot of that. Um, when Cindy and Dr. Hoven got married, me, Freddie, and several of the other guys, tried to warn Doc about that. We just saw her for who we thought she really was, and it ended up getting to a point where Dr. Hoven at a meal one time said, "Look, what I do in my personal business, who I want to marry, is nobody else's business, and leave it at that." We're like, okay, we said our piece, and we wish she would have listened to us.
Let me ask you
Um,
this, because I heard that Doc pretty much announced in a meeting that he was going to go into town and try to find a Mrs. Hoven, and that Cindy Lincoln kind of timidly raises her hand and says, "I'll marry you. Like, take me as tribute." And that's how that unfolded. Is that true, or how did
I
that happen?
I don't remember that conversation um, that Doc had during the meal. Um, so I'm speculating a little bit because again, when she was first there, was before, my time. From what I understand from this guy, he used to donate a lot of money to the ministry, and he did a really amazing job supporting them. So when Cindy moved out there, so it was cabin 10 at the time. I don't know what it is, but it's that little 10 by 10 cabin that has that walk in closet extension, and then another cabin next to it that are basically overlooking the pig pen right now.
Hmm.
Um, so Cindy bought that little thing and parked it there because she wanted to, I guess, move there full time, and ended up hating Dr. Hoven and begging this guy, Thomas, who was the guy who was donating money, to buy that little cabin from there because she just couldn't stand Doc and just hated the place and wanted to get out of there. So she did sell the cabin. It did become um, ministry property, and then she left. And then months later, she came back, and I don't know the details, but they started catching an eye for each other. And I was actually one of the first people to stumble across them on their first date. They were up on the sand dunes, about where the cross is, kind of down a little ways, is before the cross was put there.
Hmm.
That's another testimony that I'd love to share. Putting that cross up there was awesome. But I stumbled across them, just cruising my four wheeler, just hanging out. And I was like, oh, okay, what's going on? They were just lying on a blanket, having a little picnic date, looking up at the sky or something like that. And then word gets around really quick. You tell one person, and then 5 minutes, the entire camp knows.
Oh yeah,
Of course, gossip starts back and forth and all this stuff.
that is a plague of Dinosaur Adventureland, the gossip.
Yeah, I mean, it's, any small family, there's a lot of it, Um, yeah, but I don't know all the details about how they got married, but yeah, they ran off to Florida a week or two later and announced that, they got married, and it is what it is. And
Don't you think that's weird that Cindy Lincoln would sell that cabin and try to get out of there as quickly as she can because she can't stand Doc that much, and then what you say, a few weeks or a couple months, she comes back and
I don't
moves in?
remember. It was months. It might have been like 6 or 9 months later. I don't remember
That's
exactly.
still so weird, though, right?
Yeah. What?
Like,
What?
I
What?
wonder if she came back there on assignment.
Possibly. She wouldn't be the first one. I wouldn't doubt it if Mark Stoney was one of them also.
Do you think
But
Mark Stoney was all along?
well,
Because
maybe afterwards because he was dealing with some stuff where his daughter, or his parents were trying to take his daughter away from him,
they
and he was
had
going through this.
yeah, they had taken her, and Brady Byram helped him with his court case to get custody back.
Yeah. I don't know. And then all of a sudden, Mark Stoney turned against him, with a lot of people. I don't know if that was just hate or he was part of the assignment, but he came after him, like you and Cindy were doing, just with a vengeance, and even turned against me. I did nothing but, love him as a brother. So I guess I was just friends and guilty by association. So he decided to just turn his hate on me, too, you know.
The difference between me and Mark Stoney is when I was at odds with Kent, I attacked Kent. I never attacked anybody that I sat there and broke bread with and built friendships with. I didn't turn on the volunteers. And the second thing that distinguishes us from one another is that when I realized I was in the wrong, which wasn't too long after I started working with Cindy, I immediately repented, asked Kent for his forgiveness, and immediately set out to undo all the damage I had helped do. Whereas when Mark realized, and you can tell in his interviews and stuff about when he gets it, he just doubles down. And then he turns bitter and starts going after everyone he claimed at one time was a friend.
Just a lot of hate in his heart. I remember when I visited him up in Washington State. He lived in Walla Walla, Washington at the time, and I was driving an 18-wheeler over the road, and I mean that guy was stoned 24/7, man. He was manufacturing hash in his room and growing some plants, which is legal in Washington. And eventually, when you're high every day, the enemy just takes over, man. And feel bad for the guy. Him and Mackenzie. We were good friends, and just out of nowhere, just turned to hate. I don't know.
So, what's it like day to day at Dow? When you're a volunteer, is it an easy life? Is it hard? Do you think anyone is cut for that kind of work?
Well, it depends on your outlook and what you have going inside, pretty much. But it, it can be just like another job, But overall, it was amazing. Like I went down there with a few skills and just an open heart to want to serve God, and I ended up leaving with almost enough skills to be a master electrician, or at least on a journeyman level. You know, there's so much to learn. You meet so many amazing people, and yeah, I mean, you wake up in the morning, and you drink a cup of coffee. Breakfast is served by the local cook, whoever it is. There was this one guy, Anthony, who was like a five-star restaurant chef. He was really good. We ate very, very well. And then there are some guys who claim to be a cook, but, couldn't even throw together a salad properly. And um, it just varies, to be honest. But then there's a little a meeting, and then everybody, prays for the day. And, if there are changes in what Doc wants to do, which seems to happen all the time. So working for him, is great, but it can also be very difficult. If you have patience and you can be flexible, it works. But if you have your own schedule and want to focus on your own thing to kind of put the ministry together, I don't know if I said that right. Like, so everybody has a list, and if you're focused on it and you know how to get it done, and that is your goal to focus on that list, then it can be frustrating because Dr. Hovind gets so many ideas consistently, and he's always changing um, what he wants you to do. And the frustrating thing about it is, I don't know, pick a random thing. Say he has you go over there to focus on the greenhouse and plant some certain plants and get this thing set up, right? Well, you start there an hour, for example, and you start working on it and you have finally get it figured out how you're going to do it. Well, at the end of that hour, Dr. Hovind comes over and he's like, hey, can you come over here and work on the chicken coop, for example? It's like, okay, well, that's more priority. You go over there. And then when you're working on there, he pulls the guy who's working on the tire swing over to work on the greenhouse, right? And then
Oh
by the
yeah.
time you're done with the chicken coop, you go back to work on the greenhouse and the whole thing's torn apart and completely done differently. That stuff gets frustrating.
Oh
But other
yes.
than that, if you can get over that, working there, it is just amazing because everybody's a Christian family. There's mostly love there. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of gossip and drama like there is in every functional or dysfunctional family. But then you have lunch halfway through the day, and that's usually when Dr. Hovind goes and takes a nap and then works on his PowerPoint. And then you have dinner at 5, 6 o'clock, and then after that there's his Bible study or his church service, which goes on 6 days a week. So there was a lot of time to get close to God and spend in the word and stuff like that. And I've had some people come over and say, well, Dr. Hovind's just a slave driver. And it's like, well, you're here to volunteer. You know, yeah, you're not getting paid anything, but he is, you know, giving you room and board, giving you a decent place to sleep, and giving you meals. This isn't a place you can just come and hang out. And a lot of people who didn't want to work and just thought it was a place they can just hang out and be lazy got ticked off because you had work to do, you know. Um,
Did Kent work too? Does he
oh
work
yeah,
as hard as his staff?
shoot, I've seen him outwork people in his 20s, man. Um, in his 60s and 70s, the guy has an incredibly amazing work ethic. We were working on an extension off of the science center, and it was me, this guy Jeff, and Dr. Hoven were putting these beams up. This shows you how distracted he gets. You put this really heavy beam on your shoulder and you climb up this ladder to set it on this telephone pole. Well, halfway up the ladder, Dr. Hoven gets a phone call and gets focused on that and walks off. You're like, Doc, come back here, because his job was to get up there and screw the thing into place. And you're holding this very heavy beam. It's so much fun. But yeah, the guy works his butt off, and then you know, he doesn't, I guess, get to the point where he breaks his body, but being at 70 years old, he'll take the afternoon off and, well, not off, but he'll work on his PowerPoint for that evening and spend 3 or 4 hours doing his TV show that evening and do that. So every day he jump back and forth. And the guy's nonstop. He doesn't stop working. He's just go, go, go the whole time. And it's hard to keep up with him if you can at all.
Do you think he is? Do you think it's good to work for him? Like, do you think he works you too much? Do you think, you know, what do you think of him as a boss?
Um, So he's one of those guys who knows how to get things done and knows how to get things done well and knows how to get things done fast. Since he's very high paced, he has that high paced expectation of everybody. So, yes, he's a good person to work for because he's very motivated and he has a good vision. At the same time, if you're not used to that and you're used to something a little more slow paced, it might not really be for you, you know. Um, I've seen some people not let go, but kind of moved around until they can find something that works for them who can't always work that fast paced. And sometimes I've seen people who work their butt off, and take a 5 minute break. And ask anybody who's ever been on a construction job site. That one time you decide to take a 5 minute break because you finish something is when the boss walks in. Then Dr. Hovind will see them and kind of lecture them out. And then three people need to come over. It's like, he just sat down. He's not lazy. But he's just motivated and wants people to keep going. And it's that kind of work ethic, that how that place has, you know, become what it is in such a short period of time. I almost want to compare him to Elon Musk in that point of view, because if you I follow, what SpaceX is doing down in Texas all the time, building that rocket. In 6 years, they built this entire spaceport, you know, with that go, 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 let's not stop attitude. And, it's just, I guess, some of those brilliant people have that vision, want to get things done and are motivated and know how to do that, and motivate people and organize them to get things done. So, yeah, it depends. Overall, incredible person to work for because he's so intelligent and you can learn so much from him. Um,
So when you go on YouTube and type in Dinosaur Adventureland, you have some testimonials about how amazing it is. And you have some very bizarre, alarming accusations that range from child trafficking to escort trafficking to drug trafficking to the most bizarre claims of bodies hidden on the property and coolers. And you've been there multiple times. You've been up in the ranks and trusted. You've been in the inside circles of Kent Hovind. Is this sort of thing happening there?
we've had atheists who hate Dr. Hovind so much they call up every business in the county and the nearby cities saying, "You have a cult in there. Do not do business with these people." And just say nothing but lies and evil stuff. So the way I see it, I don't remember the scripture that backs it up, but if you're doing something for God and you're making a difference in the kingdom of heaven, the enemy's going to come after you. If you're not doing anything, you're just sitting idle, the enemy's got you right where he wants you and he's just going to leave you alone. To me, as much hatred and as many attacks that man gets on a monthly, weekly, yearly basis or whatever shows me that he's doing a lot for the kingdom. Dr. Hovind even says this about himself. Like, yeah, I'm the most hated person on the internet. Um, it's just because he's right. And I think his tactics could be a little better if he goes out and calls every atheist an idiot and dumb and that what they believe in is stupid and all that stuff. Yeah, you're going to tick a lot of people off, you know. But he's one of the most intelligent people on the planet. And he's an independent thinker that is not controlled by the powers that be in this world. And he's right on many of the things he does. He sees, the BS lies that go on, and he sees the the deception and the evolution theory and uses that platform to try to get people saved. Somebody's got to stand up against it, and he just happens to be that person. He's got very thick skin.
According to people like Mark and Cindy, there are VIP suites where pedophiles just lounge around with kids on chains. And I guess my question for you is, where did you guys hide that? Where is that lounge?
Since I don't have a smart aleck remark about it, it's all fake. There's no such thing going on there. It's not a cult. It's just a campground full of Christians trying to build a theme park to glorify God and His days of creation.
My question for you is, in your heart of hearts, when you live with people, on the same 147 acres for a period of time. And believe it or not, 147 acres is not big when you're sharing it with 40 people. You get to know them, you eat with them, you fellowship with them, you tell them things you would never tell anybody else, and you get to know the character. And with the type of people that you met through Dinosaur Adventureland, if there were young women or children in danger, do you believe that the people you associated with at Dow would have looked the other way or
No,
let harm come?
no, those people would have picked up the phone immediately and, saved those people's life and got them taken care of. Me being one of them. If I saw anything like that going on, that place, I loved it so much, and I understood the attack, that Dr. Hovind was going under. If I saw anything illegal like that, you know, we we do not tolerate that stuff. None of them do. No, all that stuff is lies. None of that stuff goes on. Bodies aren't buried out there. There aren't pedophiles being, you know, hidden in certain cabins of luxury. No. Now,
Send a
see,
link.
okay, um, this might be where some of this stuff comes from. So Dr. Hovind has a very open heart, and wants to help people. And he opens his property to everybody. Doesn't matter who it is. Doesn't do a background check on them.
Well, he
Uh,
does now.
he does now, thank God. Uh,
Yes, yeah. And for a
but
while
yeah,
now, they've
no,
done
he,
that.
he, he opens his place to anybody. And I've seen people come in there who I wouldn't trust at all. Like there was this there was this guy there. We called him Mystery Mike. I don't remember his last name, but he admitted to me a couple times, like, no, I sat there with my phone in my breast pocket and I record every conversation that I have with people. Now, why would you do that?
That's bizarre.
And I actually told Dr. Hovind and a couple other people when I found out about that, and within a few weeks got him thrown out of there because the stuff that goes on. Like, there's a YouTube video out there that you can find. If you give me a minute, I can probably find it. But this guy has intentions, to expose Dr. Hovind and just has a regular camera around his neck, but he's recording the whole thing, unbeknownst to Dr. Hovind, and
Really?
goes through his whole tour, spends like 45 minutes there. You can watch the whole video. There's nothing negative on it. It's just Dr. Hovind being what he does, being who he is. He's giving scientific presentations, trying to win people to the Lord. That's literally what his goal is. He's not out there, like Jerry Jones, get all this money in for, some cult.
That's a good topic. Kent Hovind takes in $1 million+ a year, I would imagine, with his sales from his intellectual property.
Yeah.
Is he a typical televangelist? Like when you sow your seed for $1,000, uh, is he blowing that money on women or clothes? Or how many Rolex watches does Kent Hovind have?
None. So if you look at his YouTube channel, he wears Hawaiian shirts. Lady Di and, you know, um, his ex wife used to go to the thrift store and they'd find them for 25 or 50 cents and buy it for him. Um, he takes all of the money that he makes and invests it back on the property. I remember when I got thrown out of there, I wouldn't mind getting into that conversation. Um, I think he makes like $1,200 a month is what the ministry pays him to live.
What about his house? Does it look like Trump's bathroom? Are there gold-plated toilet seats framed on the wall?
No, no, actually, the story of that house is a complete God moment. Was he in Florida? I don't remember. It might not have been Florida. Was it in another country? I don't remember exactly, but he was preaching and he was talking to people saying like we just got a property in Lenox, Alabama, and this lady comes up to him and's like, I'm from Lenox. Like nobody's from Lenox. The town has 36 people. She says, yeah, like I just gotten a divorce. My husband and I were gonna build this house together. It's basically just a frame. If you want to take the frame and have the house, you can have it. I guess it cost him $5,000 to move a skeleton over to his property. Then through volunteers and donations, they built a house. It's just a 2 bedroom house with 2 bathrooms. The living room and kitchen are basically the same small room. It's basically the size of a small double wide trailer. It is nothing fancy at all.
Does he blow any of the money that God sends in through donations? Is he a trustworthy person when it comes to dealing with people's tithes?
Yeah, I've never seen him blow it on anything. You know, every Sunday he'll take all the volunteers out and spend like $500-600 at a Chinese restaurant, making sure all his volunteers are fed and well taken care of. I mean, the guy drives around in a pickup truck that has 280,000 miles on it and is falling apart.
What about when he's not on camera? Because it's easy for evangelists, especially when they have global recognition like he does. At one point before he got arrested, he was in the top 10 most famous Christians in the world.
Yeah,
And
that's why he got arrested, because he was right and he was that intelligent. They couldn't control him and they needed to shut him up.
exactly, and I totally agree with that.
But
Um,
no, off camera, he's just a normal guy. He has like the most unique sense of humor. Um, so when I first got there, he was just starting to wind down his touring thing. He doesn't really travel that much anymore, but
Thank
we were
God
at a
Joseph got him to change that. He just
really.
did some really big. He did a big interview in California on
I
the
was wondering.
Jenko show.
I saw him at the La Brea Tar Pits. I'm wondering why he would go to Los Angeles, but
He did that interview that just got released that Joseph helped set up.
I don't
James
think I saw
Janko
that one.
or something. Dude, best interview he's ever done.
Really?
Hands down, Doc needs to start going on every podcast he can.
Yeah, I would love to see him on Joe Rogan podcast. How do you get a hold of his agent?
It's hard because Joe Rogan's very selective and he likes to pick the people he interviews himself when he comes across them. But
Yeah,
I've seen in multiple places where people are like, Joe Rogan needs to have this guy on. And I'm hoping one of those get to Joe because that would be hands down best thing ever
praise
happened to him.
God. I mean, I've seen Stephen Meyer on his show, so there's at least some creationists on there.
So at Dinosaur Adventureland, you're working for a person who's probably won more souls than any other single person you'll ever win or meet.
Yeah,
Dinosaur Adventureland is that tool that God uses to do the soul winning. So it's going to come with a level of spiritual attack.
yeah.
What's your thought? What are your experiences with the type of bizarre spiritual attack that takes place at a ministry like Dinosaur Adventureland?
Around COVID, we had atheists who were just diagnosed with COVID show up there just to get everybody sick, and he succeeded and then left.
Wow.
But just all the online stuff is like, you're wrong. You're a piece of crap because I got beaten in this debate and now I got to satisfy my ego. Um, so there's one thing that I think a lot of people don't understand about Hovind, and I was slightly guilty of this myself, but I quickly realized it. So a lot of people, when they think about Dr. Hovind and they're getting ready to go out to his ministry and volunteer, they have basically put Dr. Hovind on a pedestal like we do celebrities.
Yep.
And they get all starstruck and they go over there and they expect this perfect, wondrous lifestyle. And then they don't get that. They don't get their expectations. They get the real Dr. Hovind. And then people, because they put him on a pedestal and their expectations are so high, leave somewhat disappointed because it wasn't exactly what they expected. Um, and so that sets a lot of people up to, you know, talk negatively, about him because, and a lot of people go there, just because they think it's a simple or easy way of life, but it's a 9 to 5 job doing that volunteering thing. He does expect 35 to 40 hours worth of work. And if you're going to go there and be lazy, he's not going to, you know, hold your hand and babysit you and just, feed you if you're not doing anything. And he sends a lot of people away. And a lot of those people, it hurt their pride. And so they get bitter and some of them, like Mark Stoney, turn against him just to satisfy their pride. And, that's what Satan does. I mean, that's why he got thrown out of heaven, was because of his own pride. People show up there and they want to take the place over and make it all about them, and, Dr. Hovind doesn't tolerate people like that. It's one of the reasons he got rid of Steve.
That was a good time for Dinosaur Adventureland. Steve getting finally let go.
Yeah. I was happy when I went back.
Do you think that Kent is genuine in his faith, and do you believe that he's a man after God's own heart?
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Can he be prideful?
I got to answer this very carefully.
Why?
Well, I'm trying to find the best way to articulate it. So, like, you want to find pride in your work, right? Like, if you do something, you work your butt off on something, you feel good about it. From that point of view, I guess Doc does hold a little bit of honor and pride towards what he's done, but most of it is for God. He's not, a complete prideful jerk. Like, he's doing that entire thing for him. He is overall doing it for God, and he's got his focus on his dream, and what he wants that place to be, and sometimes it can be difficult, I'd imagine, for him. Like, he's gotten so used to donations coming in, people volunteering for, that place, that sometimes it seems like he takes advantage of it. Does he take advantage of people? I don't think he does. Does he take advantage of the opportunity that there are people there to work out of him, and he tries to get as much work done from people that go there to volunteer? Yes. But I don't think he takes advantage of them personally.
Do you think he can push too hard at times?
Maybe. I'd have to really think about that more to give you a more definitive answer. I guess it depends on how you look at it. Again, he is a really fast paced, and sometimes he does expect everybody to work as quick as he does. So maybe from that point of view, it could seem like he's pushing people too hard.
Yeah. If I was to, let's say I'm a believer, I stumbled across Kent Hovind videos about a year ago, and I've had it pressed on my heart to go to Dinosaur Adventureland, and by the grace of God, I stumble upon this video that we're doing right now, and they reach out to theories of creation, I do, and I say, Rich, I have a family, it sounds great, it sounds like the kind of place where God's children ought to want to live and build. Should I take my family there? Can I safely take my family there? Would you recommend it? Should I sell everything I have and go?
Oh, 100%.
Why?
Because it's an amazing experience, and you have a good chance, to really live as a Christian family in a community that really overall, has a heart for God. Now, there are two instances that I would like to talk about. One, a few years ago, there was a young child who was killed and drowned there in his pond, but that was neglect from the parents. So everybody understands, that, like, you have free reign on the place and there's no lifeguard on duty, and it's kind of play at your own risk type of thing. Well, the father, this was just after I left, and this is the story that I hear from asking and talking to many people about it, that, and the parents even admit this. So the two children, the twins, couldn't swim, and they were out playing in the water. And there's a little pool table set up at the building down there. And the pool table and the parent and one of the volunteers are playing a game of pool while he wasn't watching his children down play in the lake. And I don't know exactly what happened. I wasn't there, but one of the kids ended up drowning. And the father does admit, he even publicly said it on Dr. Hoven's station that it was his fault. He does not hold it against him. There have been many children, and I've heard this several times from family who have been to both Disney World and Dinosaur Adventureland, that they love Dinosaur Adventureland tenfold, hundredfold, so much better. I've seen people come in there on their honeymoon just to volunteer and work for Dr. Hoven. Do you think, can I step away for 2 minutes to use the restroom? Do you mind?
No, yeah, you need to step away for 2 minutes.
I'll need to be right back.
That's all right. We'll go to a brief intermission. The lines are open. I've got the link out there. If you are someone who has worked at Dinosaur Adventureland, in the past, and you have an experience, or you want to come say, hey, this is a place I would recommend a family to start growing at, come on. Or if you've been there and you absolutely hate it, come tell us why. That's good too. I'm going to go to a brief intermission, and I'll wait for Brother Rich to get back. So I'll play a little short something for you guys until then.
Now, God has every right to punish sin. God says, I will have mercy upon whom I will have mercy, and whom I will harden. Of course he does, because he is the God who will give to us. If we want mercy, God will give us mercy. If we harden our hearts, God will further harden our hearts. Now let's give another illustration here. Begin in verse 19, and this is one that has caused many people to have difficulty. Thou wilt say then unto me, why doth he yet find fault? For who has resisted his will? If God is sovereign, we're just victims. There's nothing we can do about it. Notice verse 20. But, O man, who art thou that repliest against God? Shall the thing formed say unto him that formed it, why hast thou made me thus? Hath not the potter power over the clay of the same lump to make one vessel unto honor and another unto dishonor? What if God, willing to show his wrath and to make his power known, endured with much long suffering the vessels of wrath fitted to destruction, and that he might make known the riches of his glory on the vessels of mercy, which he hath afore prepared unto glory? Nothing you do about it. Is that the kind of a God that is displayed in the Bible or in the book of Romans? Listen carefully, folks, and understand what the Apostle Paul is saying here. God did not ordain some for hell. What potter would ever make a vessel just so he could destroy it? God did not ordain some people to hell. No. Listen, the reason that some vessels were destroyed is they did not realize the purpose of the potter. Look in verse 20, if you will, of this same chapter. Shall the thing formed say unto him that formed it, why hast thou made me thus? It doesn't say the thing created, but the thing formed. Here God is shaping, and some will not take the shaping. Look in verse 22. What if God, willing to show his wrath and to make his power known, endured with much long suffering the vessels of wrath? God, it was long suffering. God is forming, working, forming, but these vessels of wrath are not yielding to the hands of the potter. Put down this verse, 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 9. The Lord is not slack concerning his promises. Some men count slackness, but is long suffering. Same word that's used over here in Romans 9. Is long suffering to usward, not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. But you say, Pastor, it says here that they were fitted for destruction. Look at this verse again, and he talks about some vessels of wrath fitted to destruction in verse 22. But now listen carefully. The middle voice indicates that the vessels of wrath fitted themselves for destruction. It is not the potter who fits them for destruction. They fitted themselves for destruction. The potter was long-suffering. He did not create them, he formed them. But they were fitted, that is, they made themselves.
All right. Well, we can get back. Thank you for staying with us through that intermission. We're glad you guys were able to hang on until the other end of it. Where were we, Rich, or where would you like to start back at?
I was reading through some of the comments here. Wild Card Worship. Did we ever meet? Who are you?
I'm not sure about Wild Card Worship. It's possible that... first of all, where are you seeing that at? I don't see that.
Is up a little ways ago, back like 13 to 15 minutes ago. He was also asking some questions about he knew Anna and Nick and all that stuff. Rich is preaching right now.
Oh, that's Joseph.
That's Joseph. Oh, is he coming in or what?
I really hope he does because, he's been at Dow possibly longer than both of us collectively. And,
yeah, it's been a while.
Well, and meeting his wife there and starting as a laborer. She is. Yeah, she's my wife's best friend, and Joseph's one of my best friends.
Okay.
Yeah, they were supposed to come visit us after Thanksgiving, but you know how the ministry
works. How far away
do
you live from the place, man?
An hour and a half.
Where at?
We're right outside of Mobile.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're in like the suburbs of Mobile.
Okay, all right.
Which are as country as can be. Now that you would think suburban. So do you think Doc is reasonable? Like, if you go there with a specific talent, is he going to purposefully put you somewhere where you have no qualifications, just to prove he can?
I'm laughing because I'm thinking about this one instance. So we had a couple buildings going on at one point, and Doc's focus was on getting this plumbing project piped out, laid down, and finished. And this master electrician shows up, right? And he sends the electrician over there to help with the plumbing. Like maybe an hour or two later, this master plumber shows up. Well, he takes the plumber and goes and puts him on the electrical work that needs to be done. Just like, Doc, switch him around, But
oh, mercy.
No, he's just, he's on one thing and then he moves on, and he has that ADD. It's not a disorder. We don't need to get into that, but he's so all over the place that, some things like that he just doesn't realize. No, he doesn't. He's not power hungry, and just to say that he is, puts you over to do this stuff, He's that type of guy. When I was there for the boot camp, that guy Bird, I was talking to him. I was like, how'd you become the mechanic? He said, oh, I'm a problem solver. He's like, okay, you're my mechanic. And just kind of throws him over there, and then he moves on to the next thing. And most people are honored to do that sort of thing, so.
Yes. Now, one thing that I will say that can come good of that is we have our comfort zones, right? Like what we're comfortable with. And if it wasn't for Doc being so quirky in that way, he would have never found the gem that is Joseph Shackelford.
Yeah. His paid off too.
Yeah, Joseph would have just stayed in labor and built stuff and been happy as a tick, because he's a blue-collar guy. Who would have imagined, like, if you didn't know Joseph now, that he would have turned into such an incredible tech guy?
Yeah. I remember, working with Joseph on a couple things, and he said, hold on, I got a phone call coming in, gotta send him away. And he said, it's like, I know how to do all that stuff, and talking about Steve or some of the other guys who are tech guys, and he was just very patient, loved to be there, feel like that he belonged there, and it was just, I guess, I don't want to say at the mercy of Dr. Hovind, but he was again at the mercy of Dr. Hovind because it was his place and he was working for him, and whatever that Dr. Hovind would have him do, he just felt honored to do it and honored to be there, and God eventually put it in a position where Joseph's the main guy, and looking at how he's changed the channel, I mean, he's brought in a Dr. Hovind app, brought together Kent Hovind TV, is doing the QR code thing, has really brought a lot of amazing talents to the ministry, a lot more than Steve Lynn ever would have. And he's just humbly living in a little cabin and just working for God. He's one of the true talents. And Titus, the little 5'3" Chinese guy who's probably 65 years old, who's up there, the entire arc together by himself, basically.
Old Titus. I love Titus. I've said this publicly and I'll say it again. The two best things to ever happen to Dinosaur Adventureland was Kent Hovind and Joseph Shackelford. And my prayer, and I pray this so hard, is that when Doc finally can't do it anymore, when it comes to that stage of life, that Joseph is the one who gets tapped on the shoulder to continue, the work, because I think he'd be phenomenal.
Yeah, I've had people tell me, I don't know who these people were, but they just said, yeah, like somebody on the board says, as soon as um, Dr. Hovind passes away, they're just going to do away with the place. Like, you can't do that. That's too good of a ministry.
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, you just look at the property. You look at what he's put together. You walk in the museum and all the thought that's gone into that place. You know, I mean, they have a Tesla coil setting in the entry room. How many places on Earth have a Tesla coil? You know,
Yeah. How long do you think it'll be before Doc does want to, retire, or at least kind of retire?
he said he's never going to do it. Like many times he says he wants to get to the point where he's built everything, kind of, gets down to a handful of staff, and then all he does is just preach and focus on a couple tours and stuff like that. But he can't sit still. He's going to keep going. I think he'll be up there like 93 years old, unless the Lord comes back first, still doing tours. He has gotten to the point where instead of doing, side by sides and four wheelers, he's shown his age and actually got Jeeps just so he can have a heater in the wintertime to make the tours that much better. Um, yeah, I don't think he's ever going to stop.
Is life at Dell always rosy? Is
No.
it the Andy Griffith scene where you see Andy and Opie walking down hand in hand with fishing poles? Is that what day to day life is like there?
Well, about two or three times a day, you do walk by somebody who are whistling that tune, but
I'm probably guilty.
no, no. Just like everything else, you have your good and your bad days. And so eventually it does kind of become another job. But um, as somebody who can't sit still, and does the jack of all trades type of thing, it is good to have a place where you can do something different every day. There's some of us used to call it drama Adventureland because there was a lot of drama that went on there, but it's just a very functional, dysfunctional family down there.
Mm. Yeah, and that's fair. Um, you said that there's good and bad days, and I know that to be true. There's days where you wake up and you legitimately could not think of any other place on earth you'd rather be than
Yeah,
serving at Dow. And then there's
yeah.
other days where you wake up and maybe you're having your man period, as soon as you get out of bed you're angry, you're like, man, who put this floor on the ground, um and you're just over it. Like, what are those days like? Do you remember?
Um, there weren't a whole lot of them, but there were a couple people he didn't get along with, and a couple people that you didn't want to see, and things that you wanted to say. but never really thought it was necessary tend to come out. But it's I don't remember enough of them. Um, there is one thing that um, does come to mind when you're talking about that sort of thing. It's kind of an overall experience. So after my first, 4 months there, when I was going up to sublet out my apartment before I moved back, I was driving through Nashville, Tennessee, and then I started seeing all the traffic and all the lustful billboards and all the distractions of the world coming back at you. It's just like, I want to go back, because
Hmm.
the Bible says live in the world and not of it.
Right.
Being at Dino Land is a place that is based around biblical principles and none of the distractions or most of the distractions of the daily city life and fast paced, and all the deceptive advertisements right in your face. All that stuff is gone. And that was
It's
just one of the most
it
biggest part of it. Good.
it's like this is the best way I can describe Dal. It's like Mayberry in the center of San Francisco. You have all the world around you, and then somehow in the middle of all the debauchery you have this little pocket of wholesomeness.
Yeah, I don't know what Mayberry is, so
Mayberry from Andy Griffith.
no. Oh, okay.
Wow.
I, I haven't watched that show since I was like, I don't know, 12.
That was a long time ago, man.
Yeah, yeah, thanks.
No, I mean, look, that was a long time ago for me.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
I realized that all the songs that came out when I was like in my later teens are considered classics now, and I'm like, you son of a gun.
Right. Yeah,
That's humbling.
it is. But it shows me a couple things, One, you're that much closer to heaven, and two, our existence is very finite in the vast universe. And 5 minutes ago, I was in high school. In another 5 minutes, I'm going to be, 85 years old. It's going to go by like that.
A vapor.
And before you know it, you're going to be at the judgment seat of God, you know? And are you
You,
going to the right place? What, like Dr. Hovind says, smoking or non smoking?
the
You
type
know?
of battlefield that Dal is, you do put sweat, blood, and tears into projects. And the two projects I put the blood, sweat, and tears into is we were adding the addition onto the Science Center, the big addition in the back, and we built several cabins onto the lake house. What were the projects that you put the blood, sweat, and tears into? What did you help build?
One of my favorite, most memorable um, projects was putting that cross up there. Um, not that, so this isn't me trying to be as selfless as possible, but we were up there on the sand dunes one day, and I was actually looking at the far sand dune on the other side of the lake. And out of nowhere, I was like, "Hey, Doc, you should put three crosses up there on that sand dune." It's like, "Huh." Then a couple weeks later, he's like, "I want you to take one of those 40-foot telephone poles down by where what is it the sling and Goliath is, where that little
Yeah.
netted cages. They had a bunch of 40-foot telephone poles down there, and we just had that little bitty John Deere tractor. Well, it took me 45 minutes to haul that thing up to the sand dunes because it's heavy and you have no traction on that sand, even with four-wheel drive. And as soon as I jumped in the John Deere, from the time I started, from the time I got that thing all the way up there, I had the old rugged cross was going on in my head, just on.
Yeah.
And I haven't heard that hymn in well over a decade. And it was just very humbling and peaceful that, I kind of got that opportunity to do that. And then Anna's little brother Moses was there helping me dig the hole. First, we dig the first 6 feet, but we needed an 8 foot hole, so we had 2 feet left to go. And we hired a local guy with a track bulldozer or track front loader, and then we had um, the backhoe turned around, and we dug the 6 feet, but we needed to go 2 feet down. And I felt just piece of it, and I knew nothing would happen. But looking back on it later, it just seemed like a dumb thing to do, standing inside this 6 foot hole about 2 feet wide with post hole diggers, digging down at my feet, and then handing it up to Moses, who would take it up and dump the sand out of it.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, I mean it was dumb, but just the whole time, we kind of had a plan how to dig the thing out just in case. But I just had that piece about me that just nothing's going to happen. Nothing did happen. And then I grabbed the bucket of the loader, and they lifted me out of the hole, and then we cut the cross beam, cut it in a third, and then put it into place. And we were going to orient it another way. And as we were lifting it up, some dirt fell in, and then it slipped from the loader and then twisted and sunk right down and stood like perfectly level right where it is. And
Wow.
we filled it up, and then yeah, it was that was probably my favorite thing I worked on.
You want to know something about that cross? First of
Huh,
all, they have a bench up there now, and I would go up there sometimes, and I would sing "Old Rugged Cross." So
really?
that's interesting. That this
Praise God.
swear that's so interesting. But also, that bench and that cross is where I courted Krista when she first came to volunteer there.
Really?
Yeah, so that's pretty special. I didn't know that you were the guy who helped do that.
Yeah, it was a very humbling experience, and when the Holy Spirit just overwhelms you and you just feel the tears come on. That happened several times dragging that thing up there. And I never actually finished the thing because I wanted to take some of the barge rope that we had and kind of wrap, the cross beam on it and whatnot. And never ended up doing that, but it's fine, I guess, the way it is.
Now you got to actually return to Dal this year for Creation Boot Camp. Did you ever think that you would be a speaker at one of the Creation Boot Camps?
A few years ago, I hoped to do it. I wanted to. Um, Honestly, this year, so he usually has the boot camp around the July 4th weekend, but I guess he forgot or something. And around the July 4th, I was like, Doc, are you going to do the boot camp? He's like, No, we were thinking. He's like, Well, I guess I forgot. Maybe we should. And then I was watching his program like a week or two later, and he was announcing it. And then I started asking him. I was like, Doc, do you have people set up yet? Like, I would like to go down there and do it. And he invited me to do it. Um, that was a that was quite a blessing.
You
Um,
know why it really didn't almost happen?
uh,
So it was like 3 or 4 weeks, maybe 5 weeks before it typically was in July.
yeah,
And then we all of a sudden thought about it, and we had just planned that Noah's Ark debate. And me and Joseph, we were going to try to hype it up real big and make that like a premier event. And then we even started planning with that being the replacement for the Dow Boot Camp this year, because we were planning for it to be such a success. And then, as you know, it kind of fell through, and Doc got distracted with getting that big crab you helped with. And then I guess they did decide to throw it together, last minute. And honestly, I think it turned out to be a great boot camp.
yeah. That was amazing. A lot of people just showed up at the last minute. Um, Now the overall turnout, so the very first boot camp we had like 300 people on the property. I mean, there were tents everywhere. Um, and we had this the guy Thomas, who also bought Cindy's cabin from her. You know, had a something up in Wisconsin. I don't remember, but showed up with a 53-foot trailer, a refrigerated trailer full of food to give out to the community and give out to the people. That the first one I think was the best boot camp we had. Well, it depends. You can argue some of them later. We had some really good fireworks displays, but um, the overall turnout of volunteers and guests was low this year. a lot lower than I think it should have been. I'm guessing because they didn't advertise it like they usually do starting in January. Um,
Yeah, I know Joseph was a little upset about it because, he was the one planning it, and he did not have a lot of notice this year. So it's a miracle that it turned out as great as it did.
well, and Joseph, works his tail off also, so
Oh, always. Two hardest working people on the property, Kent Hovind and Joseph Shackelford.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Man, talking about this place makes me miss it. Makes me want to go down there and spend a few more months down there.
It does. Yeah, unfortunately, Doc has a big personality and I have a big personality, and we can usually only, tolerate each other for a few months, and then we got to go our distance for a while. But
Yeah,
I'm about to the point where I would love to go help for another few days or help for a week. And I know what you mean. You do get to missing it. I remember this last time I left, I cried like a baby.
yeah. That place will always have a special place in my heart, man. You know, um, and you get to be a blessing to kids. I remember there was this youth group that showed up there for a whole week, and I had my little DJI camera drone at the time, and for like the the whole day I was following both tours around, filming them, and the next 2 or 3 days I had permission from Doc, to do a special video editing cut in, and give it to them just as like a memorial, to them. And but you just get to really influence people, and just be a blessing to people. And you don't entirely know what kind of impact you've had on people, but I remember people coming back a year later saying, "Oh, Rich, you're here. I had such an incredible time." I was like, "Who are you? I don't remember you, but you're welcome." There's so many people from all over the world.
Yeah.
Um,
My hope is that when Doc does retire, and if Joseph's the guy he pats on the shoulder to continue the work, I hope Joseph will continue to let Proverbs Guys Ministries have our annual, you know, our annual retreats there.
I don't see why he wouldn't.
I think he would. Yeah, I have pretty good connections with Joseph. Can
Doctor
you
Hogan is always trying to help build up the little guy.
can you think of anybody whose name you would throw in the hat to continue the legacy?
I mean, I would love to do it.
Would you? Would you really?
Yeah, I mean, God put me in a position to be you know a creationist, but I've got stuff to work out in my life first. But um, I would love to see some guys from Answers in Genesis come down there and do the thing. Um,
Boo.
well, the reason I bring that up is because those two ministries, if they collaborated together, can get a lot more done together than they would, separate. I know those guys think that Dr. Hovind is, what was the term they used? I don't remember exactly, but not really.
Ferocious.
Yeah, I mean they just they work differently, but um, I don't know if Eric would be a good fit. I like that he has taken his father's footsteps, but it, that's a tough, unique one to go, man, because the guy has such a brilliant outlook and such a good brain to him that it would be very difficult, to find somebody who really knows his stuff to stand up and debate and basically hold his ground. Like very big shoes to fill, you know. Um, Joseph definitely knows Dr. Hovind's material well enough. Um, I don't know Joseph well enough to say yes or no whether or not he would be a guy, but he does seem loyal enough, you know. Much rather see him up there than one thing that I was afraid of back when Stephen Lynn was doing his thing is people used to talk about, yeah, if something happened to Doc, Stephen Lynn would take over, and I was like, well, yeah, this place would go under in about 2 weeks, if he took over.
If that.
Yeah,
That's being generous.
yeah. I mean, it needs someone with a heart to serve God, not a heart to serve themselves. I see that in Joseph too.
Yeah, I do too. Yep. And I think that it needs to be someone who legitimately loves Doc. And Joseph has proven that to be the case, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Like, he's been able to put up with a lot more stuff. Doc and I have had yelling matches at each other. We've gone toe to toe a couple times and kind of blown off steam. But Joseph, I think, has more patience, and he has just proven his admiration for Doc tenfold, I think.
yeah. You going toe to toe with Doc? That's a rare occurrence in the 4 years I worked for him. 3 years, 4 years, I don't know. I've only seen him raise his voice once, and that was to a Pentecostal lady who was just a narcissist in general. You know, that was another kind of a funny thing. So she was almost like the atheists are, just talk as loud as they can and don't let anybody else get um, a word in. And Lady Di was there, and we're in Doc's house, and she's just going off, and Doc's trying to calm her down, say, "Look, this is my place. Don't appreciate what you've been doing. You've been overstepping your boundaries," and she just wouldn't shut up. So I look over there. And I like pick up the megaphone and hand it to Doc, and he just turns that thing on and just starts screaming right back at her. It was so funny.
Did you ever meet an older woman named Faithful? Her name was legally changed to Faithful to Jesus.
No, I did not.
Man, she gave me the creepiest vibes, and I swear I think she was a witch. Like, I mean, a practicing witch, there on assignment.
No, I've never even heard of her. No.
Okay. Because she was there when I first arrived, and it seems like you and I only missed each other by like 4 or 5 months. Not much
Yeah,
at all.
yeah, 2 or 3 times because when I left, Julie and Nick weren't there. I was gone for, I think, a year and a half before I went back, maybe a year. And I remember seeing Nick and Julie kind of get the place. And then I came back and we were like best friends for a while. But I guess you left just before I came back.
Yeah, I did.
Then you came back a second time when Doc and Cindy were married, right?
So I was there the first time when they got married. They were newlyweds when I showed up. And then I left about 5 months after being there. And we originally were still working on the property, but living off property. Because we didn't want to be that much under Doc's thumb, you know?
Yeah.
And then it worked for a little bit, and then we just fell out, and I got irritated with him and wasn't happy about the way Dow was being ran. But to be fair, my complaints were more about things that Steve Lynn was up to than what Kent Hovind was doing. But I
Yeah.
was taking my anger out on Kent because, he's the man in charge.
I think so. Steve Lynn, I guess, must have been kicked out of there beforehand because that's how Nick got the tech spot.
Well, no, when I got there, okay, so Steve Lynn replaced Theo.
Okay, I'd never met Theo.
So Theo was the original tech guy after it had opened up in 2016. My wife was one of the first ones on the property, and she knew all these people. And Theo left because of disagreements with Doc. Steve ended up coming in and doing tech for a while. And then, oh, you know what? First, you're right. It was Nick. Nick took over for Theo. He wasn't there long. And then Steve took over from Nick. But Julie was still there, and Julie was the head secretary and pretty much ran the place. Julie, Steve Lynn, and Doc. Those were like the three at the top,
Right, right.
which now you would have Doc, Joseph, and Bobby.
Yeah, yeah.
It's crazy how the hierarchy there changes.
Well, God will take people out and put people in. That's what he always prays, or Dr. Hovind always prays, like, Lord, bring in the people you want, take out the people you don't want. And that's why he's so open, because he believes that God's sending everybody, even the wicked atheists who do dumb stuff there. Shoot, that's how I got kicked out the first time. There was one kid who was there who I knew wasn't there for the ministry, and who was sent there to do something, and I confronted him, and we almost got in a fist fight. And then, I pissed off, one of those bad days, I threatened him, and he
Wait,
talked
who'd you
about,
threaten?
you know what?
Who'd you threaten?
This kid, Tim,
Okay, I know who you're talking about.
yeah, and he talked to Laszlo, and then Laszlo talked to Dr. Hovind, and got a hold of Steve, and Steve and I never got along, so he picked up all of the cameras and had them pointed straight at me, and just and they saw everything. I'm like, I'm not going to deny it, and they asked me to leave. Um, and God sent me to another good friend of mine right after I left there, and made our relationship a lot stronger. And now the guy's a professor of the college class that I'm taking. So all that stuff, God used.
So you're the reason that Timmy went to go live with Steve Lynn?
No,
Oh, okay.
no.
I misunderstood, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess a few months after I left, um, I got a phone call actually back from Dr. Hovind, that said, you can come back now. He's no longer here. And I just got this job and was trying to save up money to buy some property. And I was just kind of bitter for a little bit, because my pride really got hurt. You know, and it was just so sudden that I was asked to leave. But I understand, after I put my pride down and realized, look, it was my fault and I was out of place. I ended up going down there to visit, and ended up hanging up the 18 wheeler for a while, and moved back down there full time. And yeah, the last time I was there before boot camp was probably the best time there. I got to know Rex and Dee and some incredible people. Kevin.
I'm thinking, first of all, I wish you and I had been in communication when I did the documentary for Doc. I'm asking Kent Hovind. And I haven't talked it over with my wife in great detail yet, or Doc. So I don't even know if he would want any part in it. But I would love to do another documentary, kind of like Unmasking Dinosaur Adventureland. And it would be more about the workers and what they go through every day. And I want to be right there with the camera while they're sweating when it's 98 degrees at 3 a.m. And they're frustrated. Like, I want to show the reality of what these people give up in the life that they've chosen to live to help win souls.
When you say give up, I mean, you're just giving up the normal work of the world, to just go do the skills that God has given you, or do the skills that God wants you to learn. I mean, I had no clue my experience would be that incredible when I first went down there. You know, it's just to see the heart that people have that will go out of their way to go there to serve God. Some leave disappointed, some leave there spiritually fulfilled, and some never go. Um,
Yeah.
it was,
I'll be honest. I will always have a piece of my heart there. I've met some of the greatest people I've ever known, like true brothers in the faith. I've made best friends there. Met one of my heroes in Kent Hovind. Learned from Kent Hovind, how to run a small ministry, and things I could take away from how he ran his. And the experience overall, I can say, has been one of the best. Meeting my wife there, getting married on the property. My son Bobby, one of his first days alive was at Dinosaur Adventureland. Like, we lived there when he was born. We had him at the Bruton Hospital, and day 2 of his life, he was at Dow. Like that place will always have a special holding in my heart.
Praise God. Not bad for a gravel pit, huh?
That's the miracle of it all. Like it's a stupid little gravel pit in Redneckville, USA,
Right.
but it's Dinosaur Adventureland.
No, I just had this kind of a daydream, like if you were ever to film a Christian movie, that place would have almost every setting you would need. You have the swamp area, you have the lakes, you have the desert sand dunes, you have all the buildings, you have the museums, you have the cliffs, you have the deep forestry.
Yeah, it would be a good place. I'm hoping that somebody, first of all, I pray, and I've even tried to reach out to Netflix, but I would love for Netflix to do a documentary about Doc and about Dow. One that
Oh, that woke
would,
company? I don't think they'll ever do that.
I don't know, because they care a lot more about making profit. And I think Ken is interesting enough, and there's enough controversy around Dow to make a great documentary.
Worth a shot, man. I mean,
I
they
just wish
have.
someone bigger than me would do it.
Well, I mean, maybe that's how you get bigger. You know, I don't know.
Yeah. So, are there any experiences that you want to share that you didn't cover, or what would you like people to know that we didn't go over?
I don't know. For some reason, making the testimony of making the royal flush slide was kind of fun. I mean, it. I know there isn't really like a God moment or a story. It's just the laughter of Freddie and some of his kids. Building the thing, how we knew that it was going to be up there. But yeah, I don't know. We don't really need to go into detail. I wish they still had the apiary. If I were to ever go back there, that's one thing I would ask Doc. To allow me to put together again is once we converted that gazebo that's in the back of the property into a little shed to hold all the bee stuff. After the Mathis family left, it just kind of stayed there and kind of went to waste. It would make a nice little cabin for somebody if they don't do that. Um, I don't know.
After all your time working there, and the ups and the downs, the spiritual warfare, the making close friendships with Mark Stoney, and then becoming one of his public enemies, all the ups and downs, do you think the life of a Dow volunteer, or AKA the crew, do you think it's worth it?
So 100% yes. That place changed my life for the better. God already had planned for me to go down there and be a part of that ministry. And I felt from like day one that I belonged there. You know, that place is a part of me. I mean, I'm still tempted to this day when I struggle with some of the issues with my business and some of the way things are out here. I want to go back there just because it seems like a little simpler life. But if you go down there to do a full time thing, you're kind of a volunteer, right? But if you get picked up on staff, it is for a lesser wage, than you're probably expected to receive for your skills. And it's not really a place you could get ahead financially at, right? Um, so I still have goals, to save up for certain things, and I need that money to do so. And that's just one thing that I can't really get while I'm at, Dinosaur Adventureland. Um, but you don't go down there for the money. You go down there, I guess, to do work, for heaven, and you can't put a price on that.
Um, Maud in the comments wants to know, did you meet Mark? So if you want to kind of explain your relationship and your thoughts on Mark, that's good. And then I'm going to tell you how I would run Dal a little differently, and then I would like your closing perspective to be how, if you were tapped on the shoulder, you would run Dal.
Okay.
But what about Mark? What do you think of Mark, and how has your perspective changed?
I remember. I don't remember if Mark's parents came on there. I think Mark said the story. Is like, oh, he found out about this place, Dinosaur Adventureland, and went down there with his adorable little 4-year-old girl, Mackenzie, who is just, one of the sweetest little kids you ever meet, right? And we just had a lot in common, and every now and then you'll meet someone you just click with right away. He was one of those people. I mean, we were like close brothers right away. And he stayed there for several months. I don't remember exactly how long, but he stepped away for a minute, and then his parents, looked up Dinosaur Adventureland and believed all of the atheist stuff that Mark took their granddaughter to a little cult and all this stuff, and immediately, I guess, tried to get full custody of the granddaughter because they were, in quotes, worried for her safety. And then Mark came back after they got custody and was just in a panic and just a broken man. And, I felt bad for him. He stayed there for a few months, and then again, we became close friends, right? And then he decided, and I kind of encouraged him to do it. If that kid is your most important thing, then you need to do whatever it takes to get her back. And he left, and I remember we were out in front of cabin 10, me and a couple other guys, and I was sitting on my um, four-wheeler that I had, and all of a sudden this vehicle came up and just kind of tapped the back of my four-wheeler. So not knowing who it was, I kicked the thing in reverse and started pushing back like a little four-wheeler's going to do any good, right? And I looked back and it was Mark, and I was real shocked, and I gave him a big hug, and then immediately peeked in the back um, seat, and there was Mackenzie sitting in there. And we were just jumping around like a bunch of kids, just happy to see each other, and everybody was back. Um, and then I ended up getting kicked out of there for the Timmy thing. And in my travels, I went over to visit Mark Stoney in Walla Walla, Washington. He said Dr. Hovind gave him the CNC machines. I don't know. For some reason, I feel like maybe Mark just took them and ran off with them. I don't know. But yeah, I hung out at his house for a little bit, had no issues and no problems whatsoever. And then several months later, I saw that all of a sudden Mark was just turned against the ministry, like did a complete 180 degrees, almost like, he was paid to do it or something happened. I don't know what it was. And then I was defending Doc, and then on Facebook, he started coming after me. And I ended up blocking him, and that was the last I heard of it. And yeah, that's basically my experience with Mark Stoney. It breaks my heart because we were really good friends.
So if I got a call and Doc for some reason told me there was literally no one else and he wanted me to run that place, I think first of all, I don't know one personality that's big enough to replace Kim. Like, you would need strong leadership to replace it. So I
Yeah.
think my first act is I would transform the daily Bible studies into more of like a Knights of the Round Table. I'd have a couple creationists like you and Joseph and Dan, and I would have us sitting around a table and we do Bible studies together. We take questions from the audience that way. I would make it mandatory for families to spend time together on their days off. Like, absolutely no working on off days.
Yeah.
Like, none at all. That I would be
Yeah.
a stickler for that. Um, and I think I would try to be a little more attentive to building up the family atmosphere with the workers there, and try to crack
Yeah. Be more
down on the
personable.
disunity.
Yeah. Doc's
Yeah,
not really a family man.
he's not, but I guess you can't have every great quality, and he is, in my opinion, the greatest creationist of our time.
Yeah. Hands down.
All right, so if if I told him I couldn't do it, my wife told me no, and he called you up and wanted to tap you on the shoulder, how would you run, Dale?
Well, one of the first things I do is Dr. Hovind had this vision of something that I guess slipped his mind, or he wanted to scatter throughout the property more little cabins for volunteers. Well, they had like different themes. Like this would be like the igloo thing where you'd have like your Eskimo theme and your penguins, and have that specific cabin have its own specific lesson. Then you'd have your desert theme, and you'd have your jungle theme. You have all these little cabins based on the way um, different people live in this world, kind of like your safari thing. Like, oh, I want to stay in the safari house, the igloo house, and all that stuff. I would add a bunch more lake cabins. There's so much that I would do to that lake you wouldn't believe. I try to make the place more self efficient. I would try to fill some of the sand dunes with solar panels. Geez, you know, never really thought about it. I definitely would try to get different people to do different lessons. On the television show, like every single week, almost like you were saying, like your round table thing, kind of like have everybody kind of have like a weekly thing, and just kind of collaborate more together. Definitely make it more of a family oriented thing. Um, yeah, but just try to keep the thing going you know, as a free, place that you can learn about, how the universe can only be created by God in the 6 days of creation, and, just do more stuff on the tours, just make it more family friendly, I never really thought about it. I mean, if you gave me a couple days, I guess I could, really um, dig deeper. But yeah, um, I don't know.
So I'll ask you this as a closing question, and then we'll go ahead and part ways for this evening. And make sure you come back later on because Dan is going to be doing his show. He's coming back, and he'll be streaming, and it'd be nice to have people on the panel.
What, later this evening, or
Yeah, he's doing one later this evening.
what? How soon?
I would imagine sometime in the next 2 hours.
Okay, I'll try to keep an eye out for it.
Yeah, because he lives in California, so his shows, run a little bit later on this side of the country. But yeah,
Oh, come on! You can't stay up till 4 in the morning like Achilles does, or
I wish I had what Achilles has. That's a tall order. All right. So, in your opinion, all the good and bad, is Dinosaur Adventureland a cult?
no. And I have drinking the Kool Aid.
What makes it different from a cult?
Um, this is a biblical based theme park. It isn't some religion that somebody randomly comes up with, one of the false prophets that Christ teaches about just for their own, egotistical and financial gain to deceive and destroy people. It is trying to bring people to the kingdom. It is trying to make heaven crowded. It is, again, trying it. They do live by strict rules, biblical based rules, leave the crud of the world behind. It is, yeah, people think it's different because it's not the everyday worldly life. That's the point. It is a place where they want to live as a Christian community. It is not a cult. It is a place built off of biblical principles.
All right. Thank you for that, Rich. Thanks for stopping by and doing this episode. And sometime in the next week, we'll get you back on and we'll do your full testimony. I think that was
Okay.
the third video we wanted to do.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, even if it's not this week, I mean, whenever, because we were planning on doing this interview, what, like 2 months ago or something?
Give or take, yeah. It's been a good minute. You need to just probably go ahead and join Proverbs guys and let us give you a show and a room and start doing some of your creation stuff.
I would like to. I don't know if I could put together once a week type of thing, but come in for a special now and then. I wouldn't mind doing that. we can talk about more, at a different time off this camera, but
All right.
yeah.
Well, thank you guys for stopping by, and I hope this video was helpful for you. If you were on the fence about going to Dal or wondering what kind of place it really is, now you heard it from the horse's mouth.
Yeah, go, the weather there in the winter time is a little chilly, obviously, but it doesn't really drop below freezing that often. In the summertime, I've seen it go above 90 like half a dozen times in August, there's always plenty of work to do, tons of stuff to learn, and overall an incredible experience. Um, and the Kool-Aid's just fine. It's just, off the shelf at Walmart Kool-Aid, fruit punch flavored usually. So it's not a cult at all. It is a very spiritual, fulfilling place, overall. I'd recommend it to anybody. The place holds a special